And we're live. Hi, Daniel. Thanks
Yes.
for taking the time to come out.
Hi, Zach.
Hi. So, as I understand, you are a developer by trade and a founder by necessity. You are the CEO of
That's
Trio,
right.
which is an international, a global staffing agency, as well as Microapp. But you are throwing your hat into the AI ring after seeing all of these companies and seeing what search has become. And it aligns with your mission from what you've told me right before this, that you really love to connect people to solutions, right? So why don't you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm based in Boston right now, but I was born in Brazil, and since I came to US 15 years ago, I went to college. Then after I graduated to college, I started working here in Boston, and then after that, I saw the need of me connecting talent in Brazil and South America with global organizations, especially here in US. And that's what I have been doing since then.
That's amazing. So you're from Brazil, and I heard you just went back recently. So what
Yes.
was that trip like for you? Maybe tell us a little bit about where you're from. Not a lot of people are familiar. I know I'm not. I'm a typical American. I rarely leave my state. So tell us a little bit about that. I'd love to hear more about your experience in Brazil and how you came to America.
Yeah, it was nice to go back to Brazil. Again, I've been going back there for many years now, but it was even special at this time because I had the chance to bring the whole family, right? My wife, the kids, and it was amazing to show my kids where I was born and where I growing up, brought them to the school and that I study, my high school and stuff like that. It was really, really amazing. And I'm 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 from a city called Cuiabá, which is in the middle of Brazil, Central America of Brazil. Like it's very in the center of Brazil. It's a very hot city. The weather is very hot, but you know, it was amazing to be there and with them introducing, a lot of the foods and my mom like be able to spend a lot of time with the kids there and it was amazing.
So I heard that you before you were developing, your journey started with selling coconut water outside of a bank, which led you to here. Could you maybe
Yeah,
tell us a
it's
little
it
bit about that?
it was interesting because in my like before I finished high school, I decided that I needed to work because I had so many things that I want to do, and my parents, my mom, in that case, it wasn't able to, provide for me the things that I need. For example, I needed to study, or even to pay for courses or anything, workshops that I wanted to attend. So I decided to get my first job, and my first job it was actually selling coconut water in front of a bank in Brazil. It was fun. I think it was a good first job that I learned like to sell and talk to people and you know it was really really great. I can tell you coconut water it's amazing. It provides a lot of vitamins and it's a very refreshing drink.
You're not selling it to me now, are you?
No, I'm not selling coconut anymore, but it was so that was the job that allowed me to study and pay for the courses that I wanna to study. And also one magical things that happened there after I think a year and a half after I was there in the front of banking selling coconut water, I was able to get hired from the bank, and it was so interesting because people usually saw me in the streets in front of the bank. Then now they're seeing me like literally, when you come into the bank, I was that first guy who greeting people and asking them what do they need to do and stuff like that. It was amazing transition. It was a really awesome stories and it gave me access to computer, right? To a lot of computers, to software and that's where I always start.
So you started learning to code using bank software, and that
Yes.
also paid for you to take coding classes. Where did this interest in software and computers come from?
Yeah, so it came I remember, and until I remember that when I was, at my house, and there was 2 students that just moved, like, literally was my neighbor and I across the backyard that in my house, my mom's house, I could see them coming to this house, and those 2 students, and I got along with them, and they showed me computer for the first time, and I think I was, like, 15, 16. um, and when I saw a computer, they showed me playing the game Mario Bros. And I was like, literally, they were playing and showing me how to play. And I was just fascinating about computer and looking the screen, how they can touch the mouse and things moving around. It was like in my mind at that time, it brought me that like question: how does it how can someone build this? Like, how does it work? How does that computer work? How do the people touch on the keyboard and things moving on the screen and stuff? So that was the first time that I got interested on computer. And right after that, I just started to looking for more information about computer, how does it work, how to build games and stuff. And that was the day that my interest in for computer and code was born.
Very cool. I do remember the first time I saw a computer. I was maybe 13, and it was an AOL dial-up. And so I had to
Nice.
sit there and wait, and I just did not have the patience for it. And I knew that I was more of an outside person than a computer person. So fast forward, you are you're going to school in the US for coding, right? What was that experience like coming to the United States from Cuiabá?
So when I was working in a company that built software for bank in Brazil, in south of Brazil. And, I felt that it was great. I was amazing. I was really mastering like building software there. I already done like my bachelor degree in computer science in Brazil. At that time I felt that I need something more. And that's what I decided. It's okay. So let me go to United States and study more. First of all, study English, then go and study more about computer and software and how to build world class software and stuff like that. So that's why I decided to come to US. And again, very vivid in my memory. I remember the day that I arrived in Boston, like in the airport, and then going to Cambridge, which is the city where the English school was. And I remember standing in the Harvard Square and looking all these different cars, the way people were, the way people were communicating. I wasn't understanding anything because my English was really basic at that time. I was literally saying thank you and hi to every, everything that I do, and it was amazing. But yeah, so I came to US to study English, then going do another degree on computer science. That was the initial beginning of everything.
What would you say is the biggest challenge?
At first 3 months, it was the biggest challenge is communication. Like, be able to speak English clearly and understand what people were saying. Because when you
Mhm.
talk here in America for the first 3 months, if you never been here, like they talk too fast in your mind, right? Like it's your ear is not like used to the English and the way they speak English. The way they speak is so fast, and it literally take about 3 months for your ear to kind of get used to it, and you start to understand some word. But it was very challenging for me on the first 2 weeks that I wasn't able even to order my food, right? It was really horrible. I remember going to the subway. There was a subway in Harvard Square, and it was like the guy who was like coming, hey, what can I do for you? It was like point fingers to the, to the menu and stuff like that. He also like
Yeah.
his English also was a little bit programmatic as well. So it was, man, it was tough. And the lines coming up, it was like frightening every time, for the first 2 months, for the first month, literally every time that I, needed to order a food, it was very nervous, but I mastered it. It was good. So yeah, so I think that was the first challenge to be here, as the first couple months.
It's always interesting to hear those types of issues today because I recently went to Japan, right? I was in Osaka and I wanted to get around. I know no Japanese, but what I did was I spoke into my phone on Google Translate and it spoke it to them and they spoke it back and we had a full conversation,
Yes,
right? Like that's
that's
just the
so true.
power of technology today
Right.
that didn't
Well, I wish
exist
I
back
had
then,
that. I
right? I
wish I
bet.
had that 50 years ago, right? I wish I had that.
Exactly.
But at the same time, one the positive thing about it, because I was so like those challenges made me focus so much on learning English really, really fast. On the
Right.
first, like I had a first 4 months just to learn English. And I was literally studying like from 8:30 a.m. to literally 8:30 p.m. at night. Like just to study English the whole day, like just studying like the sentence and how, because again, we didn't have those device or those things. I had no other way. I had to learn English. So it was good. But I wish I had, those kind of devices and tools and technology that we have today. It would made my life a little bit easier.
But then we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
sure.
it definitely downstream has its benefits. And I'm super happy that you learned English because this makes my job a lot easier here today. And so I know you mentioned that when you first got to the US, making decisions is really was right. And that decision kind of and that feeling of not knowing where to go, not knowing who to trust, that really stuck with you. You've mentioned that in your past speaking engagements. So could you talk a little bit about how your mission of making solutions accessible and what you're trying to build with Microapp, how does that all kind of tie into your experiences so far?
Mm, Thinking, 15 years um ago, it was information was a little bit not as accessible as it is today. With like right now social media, it's like helps you get a lot of information, like YouTube and all the stuff, and even the internet itself, it's full of a lot of information. But at the time it was really hard, to get those information on as easy as it is today. And it was a mix of, how can I where should I go next after I finish on my English course? Should I go to a community college? Should I go to a university directly? And at that time you had to speak with a lot of people to really, it was like educational counseling, like you have to talk to those people and stuff. It was really, really hard for me to make decision. Okay, let me do this. And even at that time, you had a one person to talk to, and maybe that person doesn't have all the information about your background, your finances and stuff like that. So it was really, really hard. And I feel that today we have a different problem in terms of, because most of the time, even if you go to Google and YouTube, all the informations that is out there, it's with the idea that you have to give something back, right? Like they are creating those content, there was information on content in order for you to sell you something, right? And that information become, it's kind of manipulating your perspective, because you are going, but that source is not always the true, but it is the source that was created for me so I can lead me to the next step towards that what that organization or what that content creator did so I can try to sell me something and stuff like that. So that's how I'm seeing this right now.
Yeah, it seems to be very pay to play. And that does bring us
Yes.
to the topic of the conversation, which is search manipulation. And this does tie into what you're building. But in general, I do want to ask you, we've seen a lot of people switching to LLMs instead of Google. We are seeing a lot of zero click rates on Google. And for those listeners who don't understand or who have never heard that term, zero click rates, essentially, Google gets paid by affiliate sponsors, right? They pay publishers and content creators pay to have their links sponsored on Google, and they will also pump out blogs and use SEO tactics to rank higher on these pages. But with Google AIO, people are able to just read the overview that appears on the top of the screen, and they don't take a step to click. And so Google gets their usage, but the people who are paying don't get the click that they need to progress, like Daniel, you were saying. So my question for you is, are these AI overviews and LLMs, are they really an improvement over the typical search that we're used to, in your
I
opinion?
think yeah, I think it depends, right? So if you are just for the user experiences, right? For the end user experience side, if you are just looking to get like information, oh, tell me a little bit more, you know, tell me a little bit more about Cuiabá, for example, or say information about Cuiabá, right? It's just gonna give you a snippet information. It's very valuable information, those snip. But then if you say, give me a tools to manage my social media, right? Then it's a different value that is delivery from those because and also I think there's two factors from on the content creator side. It's so I invest a lot of time to create those content. Then the like the snippet or the LLM extract the information from those content that I created and show in the snippet of the results, but I don't get no credit for those, right? Because basically Google in other search tool is analyze that content that a lot of people create and then created their own version of that information and show to the user, but there's no credit given to the creators. So that's another problem that I see there. And even if those creators are creating those content, and that doesn't mean that the creator who created that content, the tools or the things that or the services that are trying to sell is the best one. It's more about because I have the resource to create more content around the topic, I'm always going to be the one who's showing up there on the top. And it doesn't mean that is the best tool, right? Because someone else who doesn't have the power, doesn't have the resource to create a lot of content around the tool, along the product or service that they want to sell, they don't have the chance, right? And can even though the tools that they build or the services they provide, it's amazing, but they still don't get the chance to be seen on the top. So those are the problems that I see around the current state of search.
Yeah, I do see when you're looking for solutions specifically, right? Which is, I think in Google, I think it's classified as either a how-to or an intent search, where I'm looking for something specific, a solution. And you see a lot of listicles up top, which is your top 10 best, which is websites are now spun up for that. And that lends itself to parasite SEO and reputation abuse, which are prevalent terms of renting out space on these high intent websites. Like these listicles will sell a spot, right? And people will pay to be
Yeah.
part of that. And does that mean that it's the best option, or does that mean that they're paying to be seen, right? And maybe it's not the best option for the searcher, but they're being coerced into trying this solution and possibly going down this rabbit hole of getting more lost. in something they don't need. I mean, before we mentioned that you were paying $16,000 a year for for a subscription where you only needed one feature, right? And then that's a
Yes.
very common problem a lot of founders face today is I have to use, I'm not going to name names, but there are software solutions that I need one tool, I need one feature to start, and I'm stuck paying $300 a month. Whereas if I was able to find another tool, which, you know, if I were to Google search that, that might be on page 15 these days, right? We don't know where those tools are, and it's impossible to find because
Yes.
I'm not used to going that far. LLMs will not go that far unless prompted, and they want to provide the fastest answer, not necessarily the best. And so this is
Yes.
where that problem of personalization comes in, right? And
Yes.
so that makes me I want to continue and ask you the next question of what do zero click rates, what do these AI and LLMs, what do they mean for founders and creators let's talk about SaaS founders and creators specifically, like where you started and the people you work with that have a great solution for a tool that they have. Like, do these zero click rates help them? Do they hurt them? What's your opinion on that?
Definitely the zero click rates, it's not great for founders or for creators, right? Because that means that they don't have the visit, they don't have the end user going to this website, right? It's not great for them. It's not great for creators, and I don't think it provides the full value for the end user as well, because again, they are being um it's basically they are being told what to do, right? And this is exactly how I feel about this. And for founders, again, as you mentioned, and it's for founders, it's hard because sometimes you spend a lot of time crafting your tools and building amazing software, but it's even harder to put that software in front of an audience. And you have a very few option, right? So you have social media, you have Google search, you have YouTube, like very few channel. You have two very small number of possibility for you to really, really be successful, right?
Mhm.
And you are conditioned to those channel and to those channel rules. And I think that gotta change, especially now that there is more people building software, building amazing software using AI. And we gotta have to have a different distribution channel for those people, a real one, the one that really focus on the quality of the software, the quality of the tool, value that the tool provide. So I
Mhm.
think there is we there is a need for a new distribution channel that needs to be created at this moment.
I definitely and to kind of piggyback off of that, right? You mentioned that not everybody decides things the same way, right? I know personally, I I don't necessarily gravitate towards videos when I learn something. I'm more of a reader, right? Whereas some other people need video, right? And they'd rather watch a 10-minute video than read a 20-page document. So everybody makes these decisions differently and decides differently. And so Google doesn't really has those tabs, right? If I want to search for news, what are news outlets saying? What are the videos? What are the images? So they do have those, but what they don't have is the option to select by solution, right? And I do think that that distribution channel needs to help the users decide, give them all the information they need in the way that they want it to be, right? Like, I don't want to watch a webinar. I'm sorry for people who love webinars. That's just not for me, but everybody's different, right? Some people passively, take this information. So now my question then is, as this distribution channels change, right? And as people start to there was a great unification through Google, right? Google kind of brought the web to one place. Now what it seems is there's a fractalization of, now you have Manus, you have Claude, you have ChatGPT, you have Microapp, right? All of these different tools seem to be taking from Google's unification because of that search manipulation we were talking about. People recognized the system was a little broken. So how should people decide and determine where to move their spending and budget from Google to these other tools, and how do they maybe optimize? I know that there's a term GEO, which seems to be a relatively new field, where SEO was relatively new at one point. Now we're switching to GEO. Could you maybe walk us through a little bit of how you see that field burgeoning? If you're doing anything personally in GEO, or any experiments into that, or what you'd like to see the industry do, or Google do, or these AI tools help publishers, creators, founders to be seen on LLMs in a way that's fair.
Yeah, so it's definitely changed the way we optimize our page to be showing on those AI or ChatGPT or Perplexity or any other chat-based tool. And my initial perspective on this is that you have to change the way you create your content, because the way you ask for information on those tools is different, right? Like, you don't go to ChatGPT and just type Cuiabá, right? Or just type top cities. Like, you go and say, hey, what is the top three solution? What is the top three solution for social media management tool? You kind of go a little bit more specific what you want. It's more like talking, like for a friend, say, hey, Zach, what is the tools that you use for marketing, right? What do you see in the market? You kind of like need to be very specific about your content, answering those
Hmm.
questions. And I think the reason this happened is because most of those LLM, they use like website like Reddit, right? And Reddit is few of questions and answer, right? Very specific question from users, and other users respond or answer those questions in a specific way. And that's how your content should be around. Like, you have to create a content on your website that's very focused on the questions, and then you have to answer that in a very authoritative ways, like meaning basing on research, basing on their experience, and basing on my experience. And here's the top three tools that I used in the past, and it was really good because of it was also cost effective and very, very details on the answer. So I think that's the way the LLM works. That's my opinion, right? That's what I'm seeing right now. And I think if you created those kind of content, your brand will be able to have a citation on those LLM and chat-based search.
I think you brought up a good point, that the way that we use LLMs is different because it feels more high stakes to put in Cuiabá in an LLM, because now we're going to have to wait. The search feels like it's going to remember. I feel like the search will remember that I just put that in, and it's going to ask me a follow-up question. So in order to save time, I want to be as specific as possible and talk to it like a friend. Whereas Google's fast, right? Google's like, keyword, whatever I get, I'm going to
Yeah.
see. And if I find it, I find it. If I don't, I don't. And it seems more explorative, whereas LLMs are more results based.
Yes.
And and I do think that when people are looking for solutions, they would rather be more prescriptive, kind of, nobody really wants to go through and read these listicles unless they're really deep in the weeds of solving this problem, or as we'd say in marketing, bottom of the funnel, right? So
Yes.
Google seems to be handling a lot more of those top of funnel queries or questions, right? Like, I'm just curious, right? And that's usually would guide people to articles and guides and the essential guides and travel mags or .edus, whereas LLMs are now more focused on commercial solutions, right? Because that's what people are going to use it for. And so that must have, it kind of changes the mix of what people are putting in terms of content on their websites because it needs to be more actionable rather than more high level, right?
Yeah. And in Google, see the way like we use Google before, like so we type something and then we get a list of things. And I have to go all those websites and analyze and looking for information, then come back. That search itself, it's a journey, right? It wasn't, it feels like imagine like it was taking now that we have chat base, we have chat BT, all this stuff. It felt that was like, oh my God, that was so much, so hard and it usually to use it to take so much time to do a research, and right now it's so much easier. Why we took so long for us to have this solution more optimized as it is today, right?
Right.
And that's, I think it's painful when you are trying to search for the tools that you have to, search for best tools for marketing, for social media management, and then you have to go to which website and looking all those websites, looking the price, looking all those information instead of me just, and even the chat GPT of today isn't not optimized for searching for tools. They're optimized for giving you, spilling up a lot of information for you so you can read, but they are not optimized for you to make a decision on how to find the best tools for the use case that I need.
And today's founders, right, and developers, AI makes it so easy to create a solution. Now I am in charge of marketing. I'm in charge of legal. I'm in charge of, accounting. I'm in charge of everything. And so what LLMs are good for is people usually like to assign them a role, right? Like you are my chief marketing officer. Tell me what you would do and tell me what to do. And people are putting a lot of trust in these types of tools, right? And the solutions that they provide are almost like divine, right? We were kind of viewing this as you've done the due diligence, but in reality, that's not always the case because they are still relying on traditional SEO. And it seems to be like people are willing to just accept that rather than acknowledge the fact that they're just not ready or have the skill sets to put in their own research. But from what I've seen in early tests of Microapp, it gives you all of the information you need at a glance to be able
Yes.
to make those decisions fast and not rely on ChatGPT because eventually these LLMs will start doing the pay per play similar to everyone else if they're not already, pushing those out. I know with Google AIO, we're starting to see some paid placements. And even when I was looking for product, right, because Black Friday, Cyber Monday is right around the corner, sadly, I'm already seeing deals for that. Google AIO is not even at the top of the page. It's actually in the middle of the page because they're still valuing those high value searches, those high converting revenue streams above the simplicity of your search. So that will never go away, right? And profits will always be the number one priority for any business, and you can't knock them for that. But for Microapp, I think that having these specialized searches like yours is going to be the people will not Google everything, right? I
Yeah.
will Google for certain things. I will use Microapp for certain things, and it will be a fractalization until we can figure out how to reunify that. And I think whoever provides the most value to the users will be the one to kind of rule that space. So
Absolutely.
I'm not sure if you have any other things you want to add, but I do think this has been a great conversation. It
Yeah.
was so great getting to know more of your background and your thoughts on the future. Next week, would love to resync and talk to you about any of the, I know there's a lot of news coming up this next week in the space. I'd love to hear more about what you're building in Microapp. You talk a lot about building in public, which has been a really exciting journey to follow on LinkedIn. If any listeners are looking for to see a business being built from the bottom up, especially in the AI space, especially one that's has really high ambitions and is trying to solve a really important problem, I highly recommend checking out Daniel Alcanja on LinkedIn and Twitter. This will be posted on YouTube, so be sure to like and subscribe to our Microapp YouTube channel. And Daniel, is there anything else that you want to leave our listeners with before we wrap up?
No, I'm very excited about, or the about Microapp, the new version of the new version of Microapp that we are building. Super excited, and I hope deliver great value to our audience and to people. And that's our mission, like literally create value for people and give them other possibilities.
Great. And I hope the listeners found value. And as we continue, we'll be talking more about SEO, GEO, LLMs, and AI. I know that was a lot of acronyms. And if you aren't familiar with them, we'll be posting explanations in the bio and at our website, microapp.io. There'll be plenty of blogs explaining these concepts, but we will be exploring them more as we go. If you're listening to this on a walk or at the gym, I know that there's different ways that people explore. So happy to provide as much value in as many different formats as we can. So Daniel, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to speak with you, hearing more about your background. Maybe one day we'll have the technology to do this in Portuguese, meaning
Absolutely.
I'll have to
For
start
sure.
studying. But thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to talking to you again.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Zach.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. Bye bye.